Okay.
Okay.
Good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to the Rutgers-Newark Small Business Development Center's After Lunch webinar. Actually, it's almost the end of the day webinar. um, but I just, real quickly, I would just like to check to just make sure that everyone can hear me. So, Stan, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, perfect. And we have quite a few people on today's call. So if you can hear me, there is a chat box on the left side of your screen. If you can type yes and just letting me know that you're hearing me. Perfect. Thank you, Isabel. Thank you, Sharon, Sarah, Elise. Okay, great. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so we can begin. Again, Happy New Year and welcome to the Rutgers-Newark Small Business Development Center's After Lunch webinars. Today's webinar is website. Well, it says website and social media strategies, but we've changed that name now. It's website, social media, and analytics. This workshop is in conjunction with our full day workshop, which will be, if I'm not mistaken, it will be on the 28th of this month. It's a full day workshop. So this workshop will just give you a peek at what will be covered, an overview, but it's still a lot of information. So for those of you who are not familiar with the SBDC, we are a resource center for the Small Business Administration. And what we do is we help entrepreneurs and businesses with counseling services. We help them to start and grow businesses. So if you need help with starting out your business, or if you're already established and you need help with anything, including marketing, strategic planning, government contracting, the SBDC for New Jersey is your resource for that one-on-one help. And we also have workshops and training events such as the webinar that you are now attending. We are the service center for Essex County, but we have 12 centers across New Jersey in different counties. So if you do need that one-on-one help, feel free to visit our headquarters website, which is NJSBDC.com, and find your local county, and it'll give you the information where you can contact to speak one-on-one with a counselor. The workshops and events, such as what you're tuning in today, are free across the state. So feel free to register for our many workshops. We have quite a few for 2019. A little bit more housekeeping for the benefit of everyone that's on today's call. We have muted the audio. So if you have a question during the course of the webinar, please feel free to use the chat box and post your questions. Stan will do his best to answer it, whether during or after today's presentation. And I do know a lot of people ask for the slide presentation. So after today's webinar, I will be mailing out a PDF version of the slides. So for those of you who are going to ask that, you will be receiving that either at the end of today or early tomorrow morning, along with the link to the full day workshop that will be held on the 28th. Again, our presenter today is Stan Robinson Jr. He is from SHR Marketing. I think we're going to update that, right, Stan? I think it's Vengresso is their new company. We're so sorry, so we'll have that updated. But he's also a counselor here for entrepreneurs and persons that need help, with social media, especially LinkedIn. So feel free to send us an email at the end of the call if you want to schedule a one-on-one with Stan, or better yet, feel free to sign up for the workshop. You won't regret it. So without further ado, I'll let Stan get into today's presentation. Stan?
Great. Thank you, Priscilla. Now, let me make sure everyone can hear me okay. Can you do the same thing you just did for Priscilla as far as typing in the chat whether you can hear me? Several of you were nice enough to do that before. Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Sharon, Elise, Amanda. Awesome. Okay. We have some time today. We're scheduled to go until about 5:30. I'm going to be covering a lot of information very quickly. What I would ask is that, as Priscilla mentioned, you do go ahead and drop questions into the chat. As you think of them, I will probably not answer them right away, but I will come back to them and answer questions periodically during the course of what we are talking about here. Now, today, we're going to be focused primarily on the social media side of things. I'll touch briefly on analytics, but today's session, just because we only have 90 minutes and I do want to take as many questions as possible, it's going to be focused mainly on social media. In the workshop that Priscilla mentioned, we'll be talking about all three areas in detail. In other words, website, social media, and analytics. So today, though, we're going to be covering a little bit about why social media is important to your business, integrating social media into your business, some of the major social media sites and applications, a little bit about analytics, and some third-party tools that you can use to make your life easier when it comes to managing social media, and then a little bit about what to do next. Now, I realize we're doing this virtually, but I want to try and keep it as interactive as possible. So those who are willing, would you type into the chat, if you have a business, what type of business it is, or whether you're thinking about business, and you could just type thinking, or whether you're in a startup mode. In other words, less than a year. So if you're thinking, you can just type thinking. If you're in a startup under a year, go ahead and just type in. You could just type start. But if you've been in business for a year or longer, let me know what type of business. Okay, so we've got several: startup thinking, startup business consulting, digital marketing. Thanks, Bill. Landscaping and tree service. Okay, it gives me a little bit of a sense. All right, and I'm gonna ask some questions periodically as well, because it'll be more helpful if I can, to the extent possible, with nearly 20 people on the line, tailor things a little bit to you. The only other question I'm going to ask at this point before I really dive in is, how many of you are using one of the platforms you see here for business? In other words, you have a Facebook business page, or you're using LinkedIn for business, or you're using Twitter for business, or Instagram for business. Yeah, thank you, Amanda. Just type in the platform that you're using for business. Okay, so we've got Facebook and LinkedIn, we've got none. And of course that includes Instagram. I don't imagine too many people are using Snapchat, but I would expect, as I am, to see Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. Great. Thanks, Tara. Thanks, Tiffany. YouTube, fantastic. Yep. Yeah, we've got a few that are across the board, which is wonderful. So having said that, though, let me back up just a little bit, because there are many, many different social media platforms out there. We're just going to be talking about the major ones, and I think you guys have touched on all of them, because I'm just going to mention Snapchat briefly. But we'll be talking about Facebook, a little bit about Twitter, about Instagram, about LinkedIn, and briefly about YouTube on this call. But having said that, though, one thing that is very important to keep in mind is that you want to start with your business strategy. Now, I realize that for some of you, this may mean you want to hit the rewind button. But here's what I mean. Social media is one of many tools that you want to use to grow your business. I think I only saw one person enter digital marketing into the type of business that they had when I asked that in the chat. So in other words, you're not getting paid for social media, with the possible exception of the person that entered digital marketing. So social media is one tool that you want to use to help grow your business. And we'll talk about some of the different applications that there are for social media. But you want to start with your business strategy first and think in terms of what your most important business objectives are, because that and a couple other factors, primarily where your audience lives, will drive what platforms you choose to spend your time on. So think in terms of, first, what's my business strategy? Am I in a startup? Do I need more visibility right now? Or someone entered, Bill entered tree service landscaping, and it sounds like he may have been in business for a while. So some people may have an objective of doing more business with their existing customers. Some of you may be looking to recruit employees or partners. But the point is, start first with your business strategy and then look at how social media can help you, as opposed to simply saying, well, Facebook is the biggest social media network out there right now. Everyone seems to be on Facebook, therefore I need to be on Facebook. Well, that may or may not be true, depending on your audience and whether they're primarily consumers or primarily business-to-business types. So some quick general principles. You want to have clear objectives in terms of what you want to accomplish with social media. I mentioned some of them: raising your level of visibility or increasing your brand awareness in the market, recruiting employees, establishing yourself as a thought leader or an expert in what you're doing, increasing your sales pipeline and trying to pull more people into an existing pipeline that you already have set up. Those are some examples of objectives. One of the biggest general principles we'll talk about here is the second one: follow your customers. People ask all the time, how do I determine what social media platforms I should invest time in? Because I don't have time to be everywhere. Now, let me stop for a quick minute and expand on that I don't have time to be everywhere concept. My strong opinion, and I just say that it's an opinion because I've heard other opinions on this, is that if you're in business for yourself, and most of the people on the call are either small businesses or startups, you do not have time to be on all the social media platforms and be active on all of them and get good at them. In my opinion, you only have time to get good at one or at most two platforms when you're first getting started. So when I say follow your customers, one of the fastest and easiest ways to figure out which platforms you want to spend your time on is to look at what platforms your customers are on. Now, there's some ways to determine what platforms they're on. If you already have a customer base, you can ask them. If you're in the business-to-consumer space, you're selling directly to consumers, then you're probably going to want to look at Facebook and or Instagram. If you are in the business-to-business space, you definitely need to invest time in LinkedIn, because that's the world's largest business-to-business platform out there. If your product is visual, then you'll want to think strongly about Instagram. If it's something that video lends itself to, then platforms like YouTube, Facebook, and potentially Instagram with Instagram stories and so forth are things that you may want to think about, and Instagram TV. But the point is, in order to figure out where you want to be, look at where your customers are, because that's where you want to spend your time. What do I mean by limit promotional content, the third bullet? This one's important. And think about this from your own standpoint, because your customers are going to be very similar to you. Think about how often you like to see advertisements when you're on your favorite social media platform. And it's probably not very much. So when you are posting on social media, you want to have less than 20% of your posts be purely promotional about your products, about your business, about sales that you're having. 20% or less should be promotional content. Well, what about the remaining 80%? That should be content that is informative for your audience or educational for your audience. It can be inspirational content, and to some extent, it can be entertaining content. But it should be content that adds value to your audience in some way, shape, or form, rather than being purely content that promotes you and your business, because people turn that off very quickly. And again, if you want to figure out whether or not that's true, think about yourself. And if you see people purely posting content about their business, their product, and trying to sell them something, think about how much you want to engage with that type of content. Generally, you don't. Now, rented property. All I mean by that is that with all the strengths and the reach that goes along with social media, and the fact that you can set up profiles for free and potentially reach hundreds of thousands, and even with Facebook, billions of people, all of those platforms are still rented property. And by rented property, I mean that you don't own these platforms. Someone else does, which means that they set the rules, which also means that they can change the rules. Case in point, Facebook. Once upon a time, if you attracted followers, people who liked your business Facebook page, when you posted content on Facebook, once upon a time, so many years ago, at one time, everyone who liked your Facebook page would see your content. Today, of the people who've liked your Facebook page, if 5 to 10% of the people who've liked your Facebook page see the content that you've posted, because Facebook controls how many people see the content you post, if 5% of the people who've liked your page see your content, you're doing really well. So the concept of rented property becomes important, because in the live workshop, we're going to be spending a lot more time talking about your website. And you own your website. You own it in the sense that you determine what content goes up there, how often you post, what you post, and no one can take the website away from you as long as you pay your web hosting fees and pay for your domain name every year. No one can take it away from you, and no one can tell you what to put on there. So you don't want to put all of your eggs in the social media basket, because you don't control the game. Integrate with other marketing channels. This relates to rented property, because you want all of your marketing channels, your website, your social media presence, your email list, if you have an email list, your offline marketing. If you use print, you want all of that to support each other. So in other words, on your website, you should have links to your social media channels. On your social media channels, you should definitely have links back to your website. If you're doing things in print, you want to make sure that your website and your social media channels are listed on your print materials. So some social media business applications very quickly. Most people, when they think of social media, they automatically think social media for marketing. And that's what they normally think about. Well, social media has many applications beyond simply marketing. It can be used for sales in terms of gathering business intelligence for sales and learning more about your customers and the people that you want to be talking to on a one-on-one basis. Reputation management. People will oftentimes look you up. Whether it's on your Facebook business page, they will definitely look at you on your LinkedIn profile to learn more about you. Some will look at you on Instagram, on Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. So social media becomes a way of managing your business's reputation online. So you want to make sure that you put some thought into crafting a message that describes your business and the value that you bring to your intended audience. Customer service. A lot of companies that have the resources to do this are using tools like Twitter and Facebook direct messaging for customer service. Now, I'm going through this list of business applications. I understand that none of us have unlimited resources. You may be saying, great, I would love to use Facebook direct messages if people wanted to reach out to me that way, but I don't have anyone to answer the messages back. So we know what we want, but we take what we can get. So everything I'm talking about here is constrained somewhat by the resources that you have available. But by the same token, I do want you to think beyond marketing in terms of where you may be able to use social media if you're trying to accomplish certain objectives. So finding talent is one other area. So if you're hiring for your company, make sure that you post that in the social media channels that you're involved with. Market research. What people a lot of times do not talk about is how powerful tools like Facebook, but particularly Twitter, for example, are for learning more about what your customers and prospects are talking about online and learning more about what's important to them. And then community building. There's some businesses that use social media very effectively for building a community. Now, I don't have time to dive into the community building side because that we could spend a whole webinar on just in and of itself, and it's not my area of expertise. But if you're talking about building community, it's usually going to be around a cause or a set of areas, expertise, interests that your audience is interested in. It's normally not going to be around your company because when you think about it, most people are not going to follow a company, especially a small business. But they will follow a community based around an area of interest to them that you may happen to serve with your business or a cause that your business supports. So people will come around those types of things when it comes to building community. Some things to consider, and some of these we've already touched on, and then after I go through this, I'm going to stop and see if there are any questions in the chat. So if you've thought of any questions about what we've already talked about, you can go ahead and drop it into chat because we're going to be covering other areas going forward that I may answer as we proceed. So some things to think about. We talked about where are your customers? Where do they hang out? You want to find out what social media channels they tend to spend time on. And again, one rule of thumb is that if you're serving consumers, depending on their age, they will probably be on Facebook and or Instagram. If you're serving the business-to-business community, you definitely want to invest some time in LinkedIn and perhaps Twitter. What's your message? Now, what's your message may seem obvious, but most of you have probably heard of a 30-second elevator pitch. And everyone on the call should have a 30-second elevator pitch for your business. In other words, if you only had 30 seconds to describe to someone what your business does and who you help and how you help them, that's what I mean by your message in this context. You want to make sure your branding's consistent. And all I mean by that is if you have a website and if you're engaging in one or more social media channels, if you have a logo, you want to make sure that your logo appears in all of those places so that people start to recognize you. If you want to make sure that your message in text or any images you're using to describe your business are consistent across channels. We touched on the fact that you need to look at what your internal resources are that you have available to actually manage social media. And that's why I say you can't be everywhere. You just don't have time to engage with people everywhere. And then think about what results are you seeking and how you'll measure them. Toward the end of this, we'll be talking a little bit about analytics, which is one way that you can measure some of your results. And then we talked about integrating social media into your existing marketing channels and vice versa. So let me see. I see some questions, so I'm going to stop and address the questions that I can. Adrian's asking about hashtags, which is a great question. And here's some things high level as far as hashtags. Number one, hashtags, and a hashtag, and unfortunately I don't have an example of a hashtag, but a hashtag is simply something where you will see the pound symbol, the pound symbol, or sometimes people know it as the number sign symbol, followed by a word like pound hashtag, like pound e-commerce. The good thing about hashtags and the way that they're used is people use them to organize information. So for example, they're very well used with events. If you're doing an event, you can establish a hashtag for your event, like hashtag ABC event. And you can ask people that are coming to the event and that are promoting the event, and of course in your social media posts about the event, you'll include the hashtag ABC event, such that when anyone searches for hashtag ABC event on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, any posts that have that hashtag in them will come up in the search. So that's the main purpose. Now, how many hashtags to use in your post depends on what platform. The high-level rule of thumb is that you can use a number of hashtags in your Instagram post. I forget what the limit is. I think it's somewhere north of 20 hashtags. Instagram is where you want to use the most hashtags if you're using Instagram, probably followed by Twitter, then Facebook, then LinkedIn, because each platform kind of has its own etiquette in terms of how many hashtags. Tagging your business within a hashtag, you can and should establish a hashtag for your business. Now keep in mind that the primary purpose of hashtags is either getting your content that you've labeled with a hashtag found when people search for that hashtag, or if you're using a generic hashtag like hashtag landscaping, and you want to be found if someone types that in, then that's something you can do. Just realize that for very generic hashtags, there are going to be a lot of posts included under those hashtags. So it may not necessarily be easy to find. The flip side is if you hashtag your business name, like hashtag ABC Company, realize that for the most part, the only people who are going to see it are the people who are already seeing your posts or people who for some reason search for hashtag ABC Company. Moving on to Elisa's question about the age break between Facebook and Instagram. That is a great question. I don't know what the figures are as far as the latest stats in terms of usage. The rule of thumb is that the older folks, I'm one of those, folks say over 30, 35, they may be using Instagram, but Facebook is now skewing toward an older audience, whereas Instagram, that's where you'll find your teenagers along with Snapchat. So the younger community, they're going to be on Instagram. Facebook, a lot of the youth, say 21 and under, they go there once in a while, but they're not using it nearly as often as they're using Instagram. So I know that's not a hard and fast rule, but if you're trying to reach teenagers, Instagram's the place where you want to be. If you're trying to reach an older audience, say over 30, and then again, also depending on your type of product, because you may be looking at an older audience, but if your product is primarily visual, then you're probably going to want to use a combination of Facebook and Instagram. So I hope that at least in part addresses your question, Elise. Bill, targeting local customers in your county. On social media, that's primarily going to have to be done by paid advertising. When we're talking social media, there are ways, and I'm not an expert in SEO, but there are ways to do it using search engine optimization, but it's going to cost you money. However, you can use things like Facebook ads to target people by county, and you can do it without spending a huge amount of money. And the good news is that you can also test and see how it works for you without spending a lot of money using things like Facebook ads. So I think, Bill, I believe you have the landscaping business, so I guess you would primarily be targeting homeowners, and I don't know if you do any commercial work, but as a starting point, Facebook ads would probably be a good starting point. So let me keep rolling. As you think of other questions, do go ahead and drop them into chat. But I'm going to move along because you'll see how fast the time goes. A Facebook overview very quickly. And a lot of this is going to be second nature to some of you, but I do want to at least touch on these. It is definitely the world's largest social network, with way over 1 billion monthly active users. And that's the attraction of Facebook, is that there are a lot of people there. One thing to keep in mind, a lot of you are already on social media. If any of you have not yet set up a Facebook business page, and it makes sense for you to do that, keep in mind that when you set up your Facebook business page, it has to be attached to a personal Facebook profile. Now, the good news is that your personal Facebook profile and your Facebook business page, it's like there's a wall between them. Facebook understands the fact that people, for the most part, do want to keep their business and their personal lives separate. So if someone goes to your Facebook business page, they cannot see who's behind that page unless you choose to show them. They can't see what you're posting on your personal profile. If you are only setting up a personal profile so you can set up a business page and you say, I don't want to do anything on Facebook, but I think I need to have a business page there, that's not going to hurt you because you're not posting on your personal profile. Okay? You can, if you choose to, share the same content on both your personal profile and your business page. That's a whole nother discussion in and of itself, depending on your business. But I just wanted everyone to know that for a business page, you have to set it up through a personal profile. Organic reach is dropping. That's just a fancy way of saying what I mentioned earlier when I said using Facebook as in this example. Although organic reach is dropping on all social platforms. Organic reach just means if 100 people like your Facebook page, if 100 people follow your Twitter account, if 100 people follow you on Instagram. Organic reach means when you post something on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, how many of your followers will see that post? Because the platform that you're using has algorithms that determine how many of your followers they're going to show your posts to. So the platform that you're on actually determines how many of the people who are following you get to see your posts. It does not go to everybody. And unfortunately, a smaller and smaller percentage of the people who follow your pages are seeing your posts. Now, there are a couple of reasons for that. One is because more and more people are getting on social media and more people are posting content on social media, so they literally cannot show you all of the posts from all of your friends, your family, and the businesses that you're following on Facebook when you stop and think about it. It's physically impossible for them to show you everything. So they have software that has rules that determine how many of the people that are following you actually get to see what you're posting. So one reason that organic reach is dropping is because there's more and more content on social media. The other reason, frankly, is because these platforms do want you to spend money on advertising with them. That's a fact of life these days. And lastly, Facebook is one of the most innovative social networks. They come out with things, they and probably Instagram come out with things before some of the other platforms like Twitter and definitely before LinkedIn. Quick example of what a Facebook business page looks like. If you have someone who can do a graphic image for you, have them do a background image that you can post on your Facebook page or your Twitter profile or your LinkedIn company page because it helps to brand your business. Go ahead and fill out all of the contact information about your business because Facebook allows you to do that. So you want to make it as easy as possible for people when they come to your Facebook page, if they want to call you on the phone, if they want to email you, if they want to go to your website to learn more. Make sure you include that information on your Facebook business page. You have the option to, as a call to action, you can choose whether you have call now, whether you have learn more. You have a number of different options that are available to you based on how you want people to contact you through Facebook, which is nice. Now, Facebook also understands that there are many different businesses out there, different types of business, and that one size doesn't fit all. So they do have templates that if you're a services business, they do have a template that's geared to address services businesses. If you're a restaurant or a cafe, they have one for nonprofits. They have one for government. And there are a couple other templates that they have. So just be aware of that. You don't have to use Facebook's generic business page template when you set up your business page. The Facebook button, this is what I was alluding to when I mentioned being able to control how you want people to contact you. So, for example, if you're a barbershop or someone that works on an appointment basis, you can put the option to book an appointment with you in this button up here. If you would prefer people simply learn more about you and your business rather than calling or contacting you directly, you could put that in there. So you have some options in terms of what you put in that space. If any of you hold events, Facebook has a really nice events feature where you can set up a description of your events and give details, including an image, the dates, the location. It'll show people a map of the event. And what's nice about Facebook's event feature is that it makes it very, very easy for people to share your event with their audience. And that's how one of the ways that things go viral, if you've ever heard of that. The key in terms of how you're accessing Facebook templates, I forget what tab it's under when you're actually setting up your Facebook business page. If you email me, my contact information will be at the end of this. I can shoot you a screenshot or another way that you can see exactly how you access those templates. But when you're setting up your business page and Facebook literally kind of walks you through it, there's a section where you can select what templates you want to, or what template rather, because you're only going to be using one, which one you want. Facebook Live. In the chat, is anyone here already using Facebook Live? And Facebook Live simply means awesome. Okay, Tiffany's using it, great. It's a way that you can use your mobile device to actually video what you're doing in the moment, and it broadcasts live to Facebook. And if you stay on long enough, Facebook will start to notify people who are following your page, and some of them may actually watch you live. Okay? And so the reason that I mention it is that Facebook periodically introduces new features. And when they do, they tend to give more love to people who are using those features when their algorithms determine how many of the people who are following your page actually get to see your content. So using Facebook Live, using live video is one way of working with Facebook's algorithms to try to get them to show your content to more people. Now, I realize that a lot of people are not comfortable using video, especially live video. But if you are comfortable doing that, or if your business lends itself to that, that's one way that you can get a little bit more visibility. Now, I also notice Tina has her hand raised. What you should do is drop, and I apologize if I missed the question, but if you have a question, drop it into the questions, and then I'll be able to come back to it and make sure that I address it for you. All right. Facebook ads, we alluded to this. All of these platforms allow you to advertise with them. The good news with Facebook and Twitter and Instagram is that you can test advertising. You can try it out without spending a whole lot of money, and you have total control over how much money you spend on a daily basis, the ability to stop and start ads from running. So you have a lot of control so it doesn't run away with you. Facebook won't take your credit card and just start charging you. You have total control over that. The downside is that you do have to A, know something about pay-per-click advertising, and B, be willing to experiment a little bit with it in order to fine-tune it to find what types of ads work best for you. So what's good is that you can start to test things inexpensively. What's bad is that it does take some testing, and you do have to have some knowledge or work with someone that has knowledge as far as Facebook ads and how to make them work for you. But keep in mind, I think it was Bill that had asked about targeting local customers. Advertising is one way that you can do that. And you can advertise to very, very specific audiences based on things like age, location, to some extent interests, and target people very specifically. Now, one thing that I will mention, and this definitely applies to advertising, but also applies to posts in general, is if you're posting on LinkedIn, and definitely if you're if you're posting on Facebook, although this does apply to advertising on LinkedIn, on Twitter, etc. If you're spending money, you want to try and capture some information about people who click on your ad, because when they click on your ad, it's costing you money. And my advice would not be to just use ads to make yourself more visible, but to use ads to try and capture information like an email address from the people that you click on, that click on your advertisements. So this is an example right here of an ad from a company called Informatica, I think. They are a software company. And what they're inviting people to do is read Informatica's Salesforce integration for dummies. Now, if someone clicks on download, when they click on download, this person's going to pay something for that click. And when they click on download, this is what the viewer is going to see. So the person that looks at the ad says, oh, this is interesting. They click on download. This is what they're brought to, and this is called a landing page. And this is where they have to enter in whatever information you determine. At a minimum, it's an email address. What I suggest is that you start with just a first name and email address. Don't try to get them to enter all of the information that you see here. This is just an example. Because the more information you ask for people to enter, the fewer people will actually fill out the form. Okay? But what this allows you to do is it allows you to capture their email address so that you can stay in touch with them. Because most people who visit your Facebook business page, who visit your Twitter account, even who visit your website, most of them will never come back again. But if you give them the option to download something, or you offer them some valuable information in exchange for their email, now you're in control of staying in touch with them. So in a minute, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk briefly about Instagram, and then I'm going to stop and go back to questions, because I see some questions about Facebook ads and boosting posts and so forth. And so I'll come back to that. Some good resources right off the bat are Social Media Examiner, socialmediaexaminer.com, and people like Andrea Ball. So what I will do is, I wish I were a faster typist, but I'm going to type a couple of these into chat just because I have to watch the time. Socialmedia.com, let me broadcast this to all, is a great resource on social media in general, and hopefully everyone is seeing this. For Facebook ads, great resources are Andrea Vall, John Loomer, and there's one other that I'm forgetting that will come back to me when I stop thinking about it. But these two are great starting points as resources, and they have a lot of free content out there. Okay. Let me jump over briefly to Instagram, and then I will stop and check for questions again. Instagram is now over 1 billion members and growing. It is designed for use on your smartphone. It is not laptop friendly, even though you can get to Instagram on your laptop, but it's designed for use on your smartphone. And Instagram is best used if you have content that can be described, promoted, presented visually. So that's where Instagram shines. And then we talked a little bit about the age group, teenagers, although, you know, as time goes on, teenagers are going to turn into 20-somethings. So teens and the lower half of the 20-somethings are primarily the audience that definitely live on Instagram, for sure. Quick example of an Instagram page. Now you can set up an Instagram business account. And the difference between a personal account and a business account on these platforms, one of the many differences, but one of the most important ones, is that a business account will allow you to see analytics about people that are visiting and interacting with your business page. Whereas if you're just doing everything from a personal Facebook page, for example, or a personal Instagram account, you're not going to have access to the same types of analytics about how people are interacting with your page. So a couple other things about Instagram. Now, Instagram is not an area that I spend much time on because my work is in a business-to-business space, but Instagram stories are an effective way to use Instagram. And what I'm going to do here is type the names of at least one Instagram resource that also provides a lot of great free content. Yeah, Jen Herman. I think she spells Herman with 2 N's. So these are a couple of Instagram resources, Subi Zimmerman and Jen Herman. Subi Zimmerman, I know that's right. Jen Herman, I'm pretty sure I've got it right as far as Instagram resources. But they produce a tremendous amount of free information on how to leverage Instagram for business. One of the newest features of Instagram is IGTV, which is video via Instagram. And there are ways, and this happens to be a screenshot of one of Jen Herman's posts. So on Instagram, Jen Herman can be found at Jens_trends. I know it's not the easiest to see, but this is an example of an IGTV post. So before I jump into LinkedIn, because I am going to have to pick up the pace a little bit so that we can get through all the information. Any questions any other questions that people want to ask? Zakia asked about boosting posts on Facebook or LinkedIn. I'm glad you mentioned LinkedIn. The cost of ads on a per-click basis on LinkedIn is a multiple of Facebook or Instagram. Do not do LinkedIn ads unless you are already a pay-per-click expert and you know your metrics and your numbers. You know what type of funnel you have. You already have a funnel in place that's been tested with either Facebook or Google AdWords, because LinkedIn costs $5 $8 to $12 per click for advertisements, whereas you can get ads on Facebook for $1, $1.50, $2 per click. Okay, so moving along as far as that goes. When it comes to boosting ads, I suggest that you use Facebook's ad platform. So I know Facebook makes it very easy for you to spend $5 and boost an ad with some very basic targeting. If you're going to spend the money, I would definitely suggest spending the time to figure out how you want to target your ads very specifically so you get the most out of your money. You can boost an ad to a fairly broad audience for not much money, and Facebook will be delighted to take your money. All I'm saying is that there are more efficient and effective ways to use Facebook's advertising platform than simply using the boost option. So you can spend the same money but target your ads more specifically. Bill's asking, does Rutgers, New Brunswick have students to help? The short answer is I do not know if they have students or resources. Check with, though, SBDC at New Brunswick about resources on Facebook ads. Once upon a time, I used to do work with Facebook, but unfortunately, I no longer have the time. I spend all of my time on helping people with LinkedIn now. But do check with the SBDCs to see if there are resources they can recommend. I can definitely recommend free resources online, but when it comes to people, check first with SBDC. If you don't get any answers there, shoot me an email and I'll see if I can find someone for you who can help. LinkedIn, I'm going to move along just because I want to be respectful of your time. I'm trying to finish by 5:30 for you. LinkedIn, everyone on this webinar needs to have a LinkedIn profile. Now, obviously I'm biased because LinkedIn is the area that I spend most of my time. But here is why. What makes LinkedIn different from Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter is that LinkedIn is a professional network. LinkedIn was actually started before Facebook. And the reason that LinkedIn is important is because when people are considering doing business with you, one of the places that they go when they're doing their due diligence is they go look at your LinkedIn profile. Even if they Google your name, your LinkedIn profile should come up in the top 3 to 5 search results. It should come up in the top 3 unless you've got an SEO optimized website and a very active presence on another social media platform. So LinkedIn is a showcase for your professional profile. It's not just a place to go when you're looking for a job. It's a place where people also check you out as a business professional. So and I'll show you some examples of LinkedIn profiles and how they can be structured for business. LinkedIn's also a searchable database. There are over 600 million people on LinkedIn right now, and it's growing. They're owned by Microsoft now. So the database of members is going to continue to grow. But the reason I mention it's a searchable database is because LinkedIn wouldn't be of much help for you if the only way you could find people on LinkedIn was to search for them by first or last name. That's not very helpful. But the fact that you can search for people on LinkedIn by title, by company, by metropolitan area, by school, by keyword, all of those types of search parameters can be helpful when you're looking for prospects or when you're looking for potential investors or when you're looking for employees or suppliers or partners. LinkedIn is also a place where you can publish content, you can publish posts, or if you're writing articles or blog posts, you can publish long-form content on LinkedIn. And then as we've mentioned, it's an ad platform. You can advertise on LinkedIn. But again, I don't suggest advertising on LinkedIn unless you really know what you're doing with pay-per-click ads. one example of a LinkedIn profile. This gentleman, Joe Rojas, does consulting, he does training, he helps businesses get to their first $1 million in revenue. In his headline, which is this 120-character section that I have highlighted here. Now, I understand you can't read it, unfortunately. Let me just see something. But it says Small Business Advisor, helping businesses break their first $1 million. This is some of the most valuable real estate you have available to you on the internet, because Google loves LinkedIn for different reasons that I won't go into right now. But Google searches LinkedIn profiles for keywords, and one of the first places they search on LinkedIn is this headline section. So I said all of that to say that what you should use this headline section for is not to put necessarily your title and your company name in there only, but to put some type of a value statement in there or keywords that you want people to find you for. But this headline section should answer the question at the top of most people's minds, which is, how can this person help me? Because that's what they're interested in learning when they come to your LinkedIn profile. This other section I have here is actually highlighted here is actually the beginning of the summary, which is a 2,000-character section where you can talk in detail about your business. You can talk in detail about who you help, how you help them, what the value is that you provide to your audience, and what makes you different from your competitors. And as you can see, you also have a section where you can put in your contact information. You can put in up to 3 websites. You can put in your phone number if you choose. And the only people that see this are people who are, well, the only people who see information that's private, like your phone and your email, are people who are directly connected to you. The public can see your website if you put that in there. Presumably you want the public to be able to see your website. And the public can see your Twitter handle, because that's public information if you happen to be on Twitter for business. Okay, let me go on to the next slide. And sorry, I've got to exit full screen in order to do that. Okay, this is just a quick example of your LinkedIn summary. I just want you to see how much space you have available to you in that summary. So do take advantage of this space to talk about who you help, how you help them, what the value is, and what makes you different from competitors. This is a quick example of LinkedIn search. I mentioned that you can search for people based on a number of parameters, like company, like keyword, like title, like metropolitan area. And so this is just a search that I did on LinkedIn for certain parameters, and it returned results to me in terms of people. You can and should have a company page on LinkedIn. And again, everything I'm talking about here, with the exception of advertising, is free to set up. So it doesn't cost you anything to set up your LinkedIn profile, to set up your Twitter handle, to set up your Twitter profile, to set up a LinkedIn company page. You can do all of that for free. Now, Twitter. And after Twitter, I'll stop for a minute for any questions. Twitter has over 300 million monthly active users. One thing that distinguishes Twitter from the other platforms is that it's a great source for real-time news. News reporters actually go to Twitter to look for breaking news, because a lot of times Twitter is going to be the first place where that news is publicly visible and available. And Twitter is an open network in the sense that you can follow anyone on Twitter. Now, they won't necessarily follow you back, but you can follow anybody and see what content they're posting. This is a quick example of a Twitter profile. Now, Twitter doesn't make a distinction between a business page and a personal profile. On Twitter, you just set up a profile, and then you can decide whether you use it for personal, business, or both. Because a lot of people will use Twitter for both personal and business. By the way, this is a good example not only for Twitter, but also for Facebook and for Instagram. What's being done here with this photo is the owner of City Sandwich has had someone take a picture of him with several of his customers. And this is great on a number of fronts because it puts the customers front and center, and people love to share pictures about themselves. Now, the good news here is that if you happen to have a storefront and you take the picture in front of your business, when they share it, it's also promoting your business. Now, you notice here that they haven't promoted their business. But he says, it's always a pleasure when our good friend Matt stops by with his family. You better believe Matt and the other people in this picture are going to share this post on social media because they're in the picture. But at the same time, it helps to promote City Sandwich. Moving on to YouTube. Technically, YouTube is not a social media channel because people aren't using it so much to communicate back and forth. However, I put it in here because it's such a great business tool. And I do notice that some of you are using YouTube, which is great. It is the world's second largest social search engine after Google, which is amazing. As it happens, Google owns YouTube as well. But there are about 1.5 billion monthly users. And with YouTube, you can literally set up your own TV channel and broadcast what you want on that TV channel. And it's relatively easy to use. Because I know that if I can use it, anyone can. So if you have a product that lends itself to being demonstrated using video, YouTube is extraordinarily powerful. And you can think about your own situation. You think about when you were trying to figure out how to do something, whether you turn to YouTube. And I'll bet when you stop and think about it, everyone on the call has probably looked something up on YouTube when they were trying to figure out how to do it. This is how easy it is to create your own YouTube channel. You can simply create a video and upload the MP4 file to YouTube. There are a lot more sophisticated things that you can do with YouTube in terms of optimizing each video for keyword search and this type of thing. But suffice it to say that YouTube is a very powerful channel as well. So content. I'll touch on content strategy here very briefly, just because of time. And then I'm going to stop for questions again before we wrap up. Content strategy simply refers to, okay, I'm on social media. What am I going to put there? What am I going to post? Am I going to post text? Am I going to post images? Am I going to post videos? Am I going to post links to podcasts? And a content strategy is important because that's going to determine how much people engage with your posts. And also how many times people will share it. So you want to think about what topics are of interest to your audience. Now, some of these things may not relate directly to your product or service. And sometimes people will say, well, if it doesn't relate directly to my product, what am I doing here? Well, the point is that you want to provide content that provides value to your audience. So that's what I mean when I say what content will be informative, educational, inspirational, or entertaining. Because you want your content to be such that people get value out of it, they look smart when they share it with their friends, and they come back to your Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube channel for more content because what you shared has helped them. And by content calendar, there's a way you can get a little bit more sophisticated. If your business is seasonal at all, and it makes sense, you can tie things into seasons, holidays, special events that may come up over and over again. By using a content calendar where you kind of look at a calendar and map out the next 6 months, 12 months, etc. Okay, Feedly. I won't ask how many people have used Feedly, but Feedly is simply a content aggregator. It's a way that you can use to pull content together, because what a lot of people ask is, okay, I'm trying to find content that will be of value to my audience. How do I find it without taking up all of my time? And Feedly is a free platform, although I'm sure there's also a paid version, but there's also a free version, and it allows you to plug in certain topics and content categories, and then it will actually pull up current articles about those categories. So it surfaces content that may be educational, inspirational, informative for your audience. And you can just go to Feedly and look at what they've posted and decide which of these you want to share. Okay, let me go to some tools quick and then touch on analytics before we wrap up here. Google Alerts. Some of you may have heard of Google Alerts. It's simply a way to have Google notify you when topics that you select appear. So for example, everyone should have a Google alert for their company name, so that if an article or some other news about your company comes up on the internet, you get a notification about it through Google Alerts. And you can set up Google Alerts for a variety of different things. It is free, but it's a great way of keeping up with what's going on in a way that you could never do it without a tool like Google Alerts. Twitter lists. I see at least a few of you were using Twitter. And Twitter, since everything moves so fast, it's like trying to drink from a fire hose. One way to kind of organize the content is to set up Twitter lists, which are basically lists that you set up. You decide what categories you choose, and you can add people to these categories. And so it's a way of easily kind of managing your stream of Twitter activity, because there's so much of it. Hootsuite. Has anyone here, and you can drop this into the chat, has anyone used Hootsuite or a tool like Sprout Social or Buffer? What this is it's simply a tool that allows you to take a social media post and put the same post on multiple platforms at once. So people all the time ask, okay, since I don't have a whole lot of time, is there a way for me to write one social media post and then post it on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, all in one shot? And the answer is yes, that's what a tool like Hootsuite does. There is a free version where I think you can include up to 3 profiles. And there are also paid versions where you can create multiple profiles, and it allows you to do much more in-depth monitoring and a lot more in terms of business intelligence and so forth. Now, let me just see something as far as analytics. And then I will stop for questions as soon as I finish analytics. What I'd like you to know about analytics is that all of these platforms provide some type of analytics. I threw Google in here because anyone that has a website should have Google Analytics attached to it, and you do want to look at it periodically. Google Analytics are free, and they give you information about the visitors to your website, how long they're staying on your website, what pages they're looking at. And something similar is true with Facebook and Twitter. So one of the benefits I mentioned of having a business account is that you get analytics like these. So you can look and see how many people are engaging, how many people are liking what you post. If you have promoted the post, they kind of show that at the end. So the same, and unfortunately I don't have time to dive into this, but the good news is that everything is color-coded, and with Facebook and the analytics as an introduction to it, I just tell people look for the, whether you call this orange, I'm sure there's a technical name for this particular color, but just look for this color as a starting point, because there are more analytics, all of this in here, there are more analytics on Facebook than you'll ever use. And the same is true of the other platforms as well. Another example of Facebook analytics, the fact that Twitter also has analytics if you're using that. Now, let me look at questions, because I see there are a couple other questions, and then I'm going to kind of summarize. Bear with me. Creating this type of ad. Okay, we talked a little bit about boosting posts. Tiffany, I'm probably going to have to address your question about creating this type of ad offline, just because I'm not quite sure what ad you were referring to. So again, if you want to drop me an email, I can cover it, because that one's pretty specific. William's asking, recommending the same if you're targeting large commercial contracts, government contracts, in terms of using Facebook over LinkedIn. LinkedIn is going to have more data, William, that will be relevant, particularly on the commercial side, and also to an extent with government, because of how you're able to search for people. Now, if we're talking about advertisements, that's a discussion that we need to have offline as far as the targeting for ads. Because when it comes to consumer demographics, Facebook is phenomenal when it comes to ad targeting. But a lot of times people don't put things like their business title on their Facebook profile, so Facebook is not a great help when it comes to targeting by business parameters. Okay, thanks, Tara. I appreciate it. The feature on Facebook to see who opens links and views our posts. That is in analytics. I'd actually have to hop off onto the web, and I'll do that just to see exactly where you go on a Facebook page. Now, one thing about LinkedIn that no other social media platform does is that when someone visits your LinkedIn profile, they just come to it and look at it. Even if they don't engage with it, LinkedIn shows you who has looked at your profile, which can be extraordinarily valuable information. Because if someone just goes to your Facebook business page and doesn't like it and just looks at it and leaves, you have no visibility as far as that goes. But with a LinkedIn personal profile, you can see who's looked at your page, or your profile, I should say. Because if you have a LinkedIn company page, LinkedIn does not show you who has simply looked at your company page. It's only true with your personal profile. So, Zakia, on LinkedIn, if you want to see who's looked at your profile, you go to who's viewed your profile. When it comes to looking at who's opened links or views, they're not going to, Facebook is not going to show you specifically who's looked at it. They're just going to give you numbers as far as how many people have looked at it. On LinkedIn, again, with your personal profile, LinkedIn does give you analytics about who has liked your posts, who has commented on your posts, who has shared your posts is one I have to look at. That's one that they need to improve. But LinkedIn does show you who's liked and who's commented on your posts. Okay, let me just wrap up with the summary because I don't want to keep anyone that does need to go, but I do want to answer questions if you all still have them. But in summary, do start with your business strategy. Don't just jump onto a social media platform because it's the latest and greatest thing. Start with your business strategy and where your audience lives, and let that drive what social media platforms you should engage with. Do have clear objectives in terms of what you want to use these platforms for and what you want to get out of them. I do suggest only starting with a couple of platforms just because of time limitations. And because, yes, these platforms can help you raise your visibility, they can help you engage with your audience, but you don't make money from the time you put into these platforms directly. It's a longer-term game. So only start with a couple, get good at those before you try to expand into other ones. And then do measure results. And analytics will help you to look at what results you're getting from these platforms in terms of who's clicking on posts when you post links, how many people are engaging with your posts. That's where analytics comes in. Make adjustments. When you look at the analytics, make adjustments when you see what things are working and what things are not working. So if video, for example, is working well for you, but text-only posts are not, do more video and less text-only posts. The same philosophy applies to advertising. So this is my contact information because I did post some free resources as far as Instagram, as far as Facebook ads. And what's great is that there is a lot of information that's available to you at no cost, which is wonderful. Do keep the workshop at the end of the month in mind because there we're going to be diving in depth into your website as well as more about what to do with social media. And, my co-presenter goes into detail on analytics and how to use those. And even if you're not a numbers person, if you're in business, analytics can help you. They can help you become more effective. They can help you become more efficient. It's amazing what you can learn by looking at the analytics on your social media posts and on your website and so forth. Let me scroll down here in the chat. Any other questions that I can answer? Let's see. Yes, with the ads, landing page ad. Okay, Renee's used Sprout Social. Okay, let me come back down to the last couple of questions. Generate revenue, I'd love to. Landing page ad. Tiffany, feel free to email me about landing page ad. I can probably answer your question more directly if you're trying to figure out how to set up an ad that takes someone to a landing page, if that's what your question is about. Tina, is there a better benefit to having a LinkedIn profile than a business because of the analytics? The short answer is that you should have both. People will engage with you much more on your personal LinkedIn profile than they were on your LinkedIn company page. The main reason for having a company page is just so that you do have another place that people can come to learn more about your business without leaving LinkedIn if they're on there. And there are some search engine optimization benefits to having a LinkedIn company page, because your LinkedIn company page, for example, should link back to your business website. So it's one more backlink for you. So you should definitely have both, but you're going to do most of your engagement on LinkedIn through your personal profile. Okay. And Bill, in terms of the workshop I was referring to, I was talking about the live workshop. Unfortunately, I don't have a slide here. I thought I'd include it on here, but you will get notifications from the SBDC about the live workshop at the end of the month, where we go into more detail on your website, your social media strategy, and analytics. Dikia, thank you for the birthday wishes. My birthday was yesterday, so thanks a lot. Any other questions I can answer before we hop off? Because I did want to stick around as long as people have questions, at least up until 5:30. Okay, Tiffany, great. I'll look for your email and see if I can get you information. Amanda, thank you. I'm glad you found it informative. So any other things, though? As I said, reach out to me via email. Thanks, Sharon. Those of you who can devote the time, I definitely recommend the workshop, the live workshop that you'll be getting information on. Okay. Thanks.